Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Overlay, a poker podcast brought to you by CCG Poker Radio and Paramount Social Club in Houston, Texas. Brandon, how's it going? Brandon's on the line with us again.
What's up, guys?
I kind of make it seem like each week it's a surprise that you're going to be on the line with us.
Right, and I'm just always there.
Really not. You're just the co-host with the most.
You know, you usually say beautiful Houston, Texas, but these days it's not so beautiful.
Yeah, it's obviously this is February of 2021, which we thought would be a better year than 2020, but turns out there's COVID also heavily affects snowfall and the temperature.
You know, I'll take snow and 0 degrees over COVID, though.
Yeah, 100%. So the weather has been quite shitty lately. It's been cold. And top of that, we've got tons of snow here in the Chicagoland area. I mean, I'm looking outside my window at my office here, and like the snow drifts in the parking lot, I shit you not, is like a third of the way up the telephone pole. Like,
yeah, I'm looking out this back
tall.
window.
It's above the cars.
It's
way
terrible.
above the cars. So on top
How does
of
it even get that high?
Yeah, top of all of that, I don't think Paramount has gone 6 months in a row without some kind of closure. Either the city, the COVID, or weather has closed down the entire poker industry or all industry in Texas in the 2 years that it's been open. We've never gone more than 6 months because here we are again.
You're like that NBA player that just like always gets injured at some point in the
cannot catch
season.
a break. It's just constantly closed. Right now, due to the weather, there's like no power in all of Houston. There's like no running water. Even the water that you're getting, they're now saying is not potable. Brandon, do you know what potable water means?
Is it water that you can boil and then it makes it safe?
No, potable water means that you can actually put it in a pot and use it to cook with or drink with and do whatever you want with. It's fine. It's potable. You could just put it right in there. If it's not potable water, I think that's right. I'm going on a huge limb here saying that, and then I really don't know if that's true. Potable water.
Yeah. Sometimes I think my life sucks, and then I just never have to worry about potable water.
I am right. Drinking water, also known as potable water, is good water. Water you can drink straight from the tap. I am a tap water guy. I always drink water from the tap. People always give me this really crazy look, and I'm like, bro, it's water. Like, it is what it is. I'm perfectly fine with it.
Plus, I know for a fact that in our area, we have some of the best drinking water in the country.
Lake Michigan water in Chicago in general. Which would be Northwest Indiana as well, which is where Brandon lives.
Yes.
Fantastic water. Tastes good. It's great water. Everybody loves it. They should just bottle Lake Michigan water, and then that's it. They probably do. It's called.
I think they do that at the Horseshoe.
Right.
No, I think the Horseshoe is just like bottled.
It's so good. Water. Anyways, back to potable water. Houston has no potable water. The water they're getting now from the tap, if they're getting water from their tap, is no good. Like Mark went to the GM at Paramount, told me yesterday, like the toilets aren't flushing because the water pressure is so down. Thank goodness we don't have any kind of like water main breakage where there's like flooding.
I've been seeing TikTok where there's just flooding in people's rooms.
It's crazy. Like there's going to be so much damage, and it's like, man, in a year that we just needed to like catch a break, just no breaks. No breaks. So episode 41, starting out in a hell of a good time. Chicago, people are still, it's funny, people in Chicago still text me and they're like, hey, are the events running this week because of the snow? And I always say, hell yeah.
This is Chicago, baby.
We never
we're
cancel.
Running.
Never. I always, the running joke of the long time was like, I don't care if it's a zombie apocalypse. We're doing an event.
Right.
100%. Until we're out of licenses, we going. Get them zombies in a sit and go. Let's go. Put a bounty on them with just episode 41, the bounty episode. And then earlier, before the pre-recording show, I asked Brandon, let's like think of a famous bounty hunter, and then we'll like loop that in. And Brandon, who did you say your most famous bounty hunter was?
I just snapped off. I was like, Dog.
Snap calls Dog the bounty hunter.
I was like, Dog.
I mean, it's true. I think Dog is definitely. I was thinking Boba Fett from Star Wars is a bounty hunter that may be one of the most famous. Do you remember the show Renegade?
No.
There was a show Renegade the Bounty Hunter, which was pretty good. I liked it. He was like this weird old biker guy with like long hair and very pretty.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'd picture Renegade
it was
as.
Pretty good show. I'm not gonna lie. He had like a Native American friend that was cool too. Like he was a really good tracker, which maybe is mildly offensive. I don't know. Are all people who are Native American, are they just assumed that they can like find people at all times? Like
I'm just thinking
shitty,
like
right?
Yellowstone and like
Oh, dude,
Native Americans in there, like they're good.
Quick snapback to last episode, where we did the big game, which was a good one.
Oh,
I liked it.
Yeah, we need to go back to that episode twice. But I'm going to talk about my picks.
Yes, we can talk about your picks, but I want to talk about the commercials. One of the commercials in there is a Yellowstone prequel that they're putting out that looks super dope. Very excited to find out about. Yellowstone might be one of my all-time favorite shows of all time, ever.
Yes, I need to watch it.
I've
only seen that the first 5 episodes.
Oh, it's so good. It gets better. Only gets better.
Good.
But let's go over Brandon's picks really quick from last week on the big game, which we all know is the Super Bowl, which I'm pretty sure now we can talk about and not get in trouble.
Yeah, now that it's over,
it's like a
Super
year
Bowl
away,
again until like January.
The Super Bowl
2022, it turns into the big game.
Yeah, the Super Bowl police are probably not out looking for stuff right now.
No.
How were your picks, Brandon?
Well, I'll start with the ones that we bricked. We bricked the Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes first touchdowns, which were 30-1 Hail Marys anyways. But we bricked those because we hit the Rob Gronkowski first touchdown. 14-1. And then, like I said, Bucks in the under.
Bucks in the under.
Just simple as that. I was calling for it.
I thought it was a great game. Like, I was super into it. I'm a Tom Brady fan.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, the injuries to the offensive line of the Chiefs, which, like, the standard better and, like, the person that, like, doesn't understand football, like, won't realize, like, how huge that is.
Yeah.
And, like, when you're facing a really good Bucks defensive front, like, you putting up backups in the Super Bowl is just going to have Patrick Mahomes running for his life. And he was running for his life.
Negative EV. Yeah, a lot of sacks.
Trying to do magician stuff.
Magitional. I like it.
Magitional stuff. But, you know, he came up a little short, and Tom Brady, number 7? Number 6?
7.
How many? 7 Super Bowls?
Yeah, he's got 7 wins.
Jeez.
7 out of
10?
10 or 11.
It's pretty good.
Has he been 11 times? No, it's 10 times. 10 out of, like, 21 seasons or something crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I saw this, like, TikTok that was like, these are the true heroes, and it's like the only quarterbacks to ever beat Brady in the playoffs.
That's great.
And it's like the worst quarter. Like, it's like Eli Manning. He won 2 Super Bowls against Brady.
Let's look at how Tom Brady, if you want to argue that, and again, we'll get to the real episode here about bounty tournaments in a second, because I'm super excited about bounty tournaments in general.
Me too.
But I want to touch on Brady. Anybody who wants to give Brady he's not the greatest of all time, like blah blah blah. Let's look at the quarterbacks that he had to play against in this playoffs and the Super Bowl in itself. I mean, you had Drew Brees. I mean, number 2 to Brady's number 1 in terms of statistics. And actually, Drew Brees has got more number 1s on, like, lifetime statistics than even Brady does. Then you go into freaking Aaron Rodgers in the AFC Championship or NFC Championship?
NFC Championship.
NFC Championship.
And that's at Lambeau. No fans, but I mean,
still.
You know.
And then after that, he's got to face Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and
who's the baby goat,
and he dominates all 3 of them. I don't know if dominates,
and he actually
but he
played
wins.
the wild card game. He played the wild card game against that backup against Washington, and almost lost to that backup in Washington. They were like, "Oh, the only guy that actually came close to beating Brady was
the backup,
Hensky, or I forget his name because nobody knows his name.
No, he knows his name.
But yeah, I mean, Brees, Rodgers, and Mahomes. I mean, that's like murderer's row.
Yeah, it's crazy, which is awesome. I mean, I think it just goes to show how good of a game it was. And I know there were a lot of penalties, and a lot of Chiefs fans were like, penalties. But, like, I don't think the game was called
They
bad.
Didn't have a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I bet the farm on him. You know that. Not the farm. A very small farm, like a worm farm.
Yeah, a worm farm.
Worm farm. Anyways, episode 41, we're going to talk about bounty tournaments.
Yes.
Specifically about how the bounty affects your play throughout the tournament, both for and against. There's some good times where it affects it. There's some bad times where it's effective. And then how the bounties really become null and void towards the end of the tournament. And you're talking about getting payouts. So let's kind of like kick it off. I want to do one thing first. Can we get I've got a pretty good definition of what a bounty tournament is, but I want to throw a few questions at you. So give me a second.
Oof.
A bounty is a feature in some poker tournaments that rewards a player for eliminating another player. Depending on the tournament, a player might be rewarded for eliminating either a specific player or any player. Obviously, most of the bounty tournaments that we know about in Chicago and in Houston are typically bounties on each and every person. There's no like celebrity bounties, although a lot of the times when you think about charity poker, you think about the celebrity bounties, right? Like you get the Mike Ditka who's playing at the,
Yes, it's $500 if you knock out.
You knock out Ditka, you get
that,
bonus money.
It's all the same,
right? But and there's no other bounties than anybody else. So I think there's kind of like there's the regular bounty tournament where it's a same bounty on each player no matter when you knock them out in the tournament. It's normally a pretty hefty bounty, right? Like it can be. Yeah. It's a good portion of the prize pool is in bounties, which you should be aware of, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you got the celebrity bounty side, where only a handful of the people in the tournament have a bounty on them. Remember we used to do one at CCG where it was like, this is old school days. If you guys remember this, you are a true fan of CCG. If you remember the celebrity bounty at the start of the tournament where you would randomly pick a seat and a table, and that person would be the celebrity bounty. They would be worth like $200 where everybody else is only worth like $25 bounties. Yeah. And that person got a free entry. They got their money back for the entry because it was like, obviously you have a huge target on your face when you are the celebrity bounty in a tournament where there's only one person who's worth $200. So like you should get something for that, which was always a super fun tournament. But is there a difference when you hear the terms like knockout or anything along those lines? Or those are just bounty tournaments or...
Yeah, those are just bounty
right. Knockout is not really like, because some people call it a knockout tournament. Or you get paid for knockouts.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Then there are some really weird ones where they get into like the progressive bounties, which I don't think anybody's really figured out how to do live. Those are online tournaments, yes?
Yeah, it's really tough to do live. I have one way of trying to do it, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's basically pretty much impossible because you got to keep track of, the bounties keep increasing on the people as you knock people out. You got to put half in your pocket and half on your bounty stack. Well, all of a sudden $25, now you got to put $12.50 on your stack, and then you got to round, and then
when it's virtual, it's much easier to do.
People might put stuff in their pockets, and it's really tough to manage.
What do you do if two guys what do you do when two guys get knocked out within like seconds of one another? And it's very difficult.
It's really messy. Automated, that's where the computer really has an advantage because they can just and they add it all up and keep track of it.
But bounty tournaments are always typically like this weekend at CCG. There's a bounty tournament on Sunday, $250 buy-in, where $50 of the $250 is a bounty per player, which is a pretty dope bounty for knocking people out. $50.
That's what, 1/5?
Yeah,
that's 20% of the prize.
Exactly 1/5. Paramount does a weekly bounty tournament on, I want to say Friday nights. Friday night is a $60 bounty. I think that's correct. That's another good one. And they get a really good turnout for that.
Bounties are just so fun because the mentality of just like simply like, well, all I got to do is knock a couple guys out and it's not even worth that much.
And again, it moves the payouts to be effective kind of all the time versus... Yeah,
it spreads it out a lot.
Right, where it's
only
like
at the end.
You're playing for so long. And then it's like, okay, that we're past that money bubble, which we've actually... What was our money bubble episode? That was another good one. It was playing on the bubble. I'll find it.
Yeah,
Keep
that was
going.
fun. That was in May.
Episode 11, May 15th. Way to hit that one. How to exploit players in the money bubble. That is one of the most underrated episodes that we have. I think there's a ton of good information on that one.
Yeah, I feel like I actually studied for that one.
Yeah, kind of like this bounty tournament. So give us a breakdown, Brandon. Let's kind of do like 3 stages of the tournament. Early stages, middle stages, late stages. How do the bounties affect people's play? Let's start in the logical sense, in the middle.
At the beginning? in the middle. All right, so at the beginning.
Why am I such a dick? Do people think I'm funny? I'm really kind of. Allison always says he's really kind of a jerk. He always says some jerky
funny
stuff.
In like 2012.
Yeah, Brandon either says I'm really funny or I have really. Duds.
Very polarizing. He's got a 10 or a 0.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of 5 jokes. There's just 10s or zips. Yeah. Anyways, start at the beginning. How do they affect us in the beginning of tournaments?
I mean, not so much in the beginning. The only thing you really need, I mean, obviously the number one rule of a bounty tournament, and like this seems kind of common sense, a lot more because you have to
broke
cover
up a little
people.
bit there. It's the first time we've had a breakup.
Wow, really? I broke up? I'm sorry.
Super weird.
Do you want your sweatshirt back or?
Yes. Ooh. 15 minutes in. If you were listening to this, today is Thursday, February 18th of 2021. I currently have the overlay sweatshirts in my car today, which I will bring to the Bridgeview at the CCG Poker. I will have overlay sweatshirts, which I think I'm selling for $10. It's just a $10 donation. They cost me way more than that, but I do not care. I have a couple sweatshirts and a ton of T-shirts, and we're really just trying to get Brandon a new microphone. Yeah, so definitely come by and see us for some overlay shirts. They're shirts, mostly shirts, 99% shirts. Anyways, go ahead. Early stages of the bounty tournament, Brandon.
So early stages, the number one rule of a bounty is you have to cover people or you can't get their bounties. I mean, that's like the overall rule. So
you have to knock them out.
Yeah, you have to. But I'm saying you have to cover them to knock them out.
Right.
So like covering people is very huge. When you don't cover anybody,
your bounties
you aren't really playing a bounty tournament anymore. You're really just playing a tournament, trying to cover people and then play a bounty tournament. So at the beginning, kind of just plays out like a regular tournament. I mean, everybody has 400, 500 big blinds deep. I mean, you're really not trying to put your whole tournament on the line early on for a bounty like that. The bounty doesn't really weigh into your decision too much. You're kind of just playing poker, and then you progress along and you'll go after, somebody will lose that overset or somebody will lose a big
plus
pot.
The stacks are much more similarly, they're comparable, right?
Yeah, everybody's got 500 big blinds. Like correct. Nobody is short. Nobody can really attack anybody else because it's just, they're just playing poker. You got to get off to the races before you can see who's ahead. I don't know where I was going with that, but so the beginning just plays like a standard tournament. It's really after break that when the blinds start getting to 300, 600 with an ante, 400, 800 with an ante, that is where the bounty tournament really kicks into high gear. Because
where the bounties start affecting the play.
Correct.
They're not really affecting a lot of play early on in a tournament because everybody's much more comparable. You're building up. You're playing a regular tournament, even though the bounties are in the back of your mind. And there are times that people are going to say, F it, I call because there's a $50 bill in that pot. And even though I'm probably not getting the right odds, it's like there are some tipping of the scales. They're just they're just not as heavily tipped. Whereas in the middle of the tournament.
Yeah, the tipping of the scales really start in the middle of the tournament. Yeah. Really, the only way you're going to win a bounty in the beginning of the tournament is if you cooler somebody really terribly, or if somebody loses 90% of their chips and
they got coolered and you just get lucky enough where you're the big blind, small blind, and you're just getting their punt at the end.
Correct. Like one guy shoves on the button and you're the small.
But again, that's not really the bounty is not affecting your play. Right? Like correct. You probably would have called in that situation anyways, 90% of the time. So like maybe a very small percentage of time you go, I really don't like this, but hey, I'm going to try to get the bounty. And if I double them up, I double them up. Like that might happen, but I think that's a much smaller percentage of when you get to the middle of the tournament and bounties become much more valuable.
Yes, because now everybody is shrinking in their big blinds relative to the blinds. Tournament. I mean, everybody's stacked. Yeah. So all of a sudden, people start limping because they're hoping that, there are people that are out of position on the guy that are short are now limping in with bad hands because they're hoping that they shove and then it comes back to them and they don't want to miss out on a potential bounty. Whereas in the beginning of the tournament, you had 9-8 suited under the gun. You're not going to limp in hopes that shorty shoves and then you can get a piece of that bounty. Like you're just going to fold because it doesn't matter. Well, now in the middle of the tournament, you might be limping some stuff when you're out of position on the bounty guy, hoping that he rips it on you guys, and then you have people that are isolating the bounties because they're just trying to get it heads up with the guy who's all in, and they might be doing that way lighter or with way different holdings than they normally would in a different tournament. The middle part of the tournament is when people actually get creative, when people are gambling it up for bounties, when people are just sticking it in with 60-40s, and even if they're the 40, they're okay with it because they're trying to win the $50.
Right.
And then there's also then the people that are gambling it up for bounties, and then people realize that, so then they re-ISO because they re-ISO with King Queen, where normally they just would have either called or folded depending on the situation. But because it's a bounty, this guy's probably calling light because the guy's all in. And now I'm just going to re-ISO with King Queen here and try and get that guy off whatever he's gambling with. So it really opens up to like the middle part of the tournament, just people going after each other. I mean, it's really the fun part of the tournament. If you have chips in the middle of a bounty tournament, it's where like Stacia just does her work and will knock out 7 to 9 to 11 people. You're just like, what just happened?
And again, that's the logical reason. I also think the other reason that these happen or that the bounties really start to become like a determining factor of people are going to call or how they play is because also you've been playing a tournament for a couple of hours now, and you're probably at least half the amount of whatever amount of time you've been in the tournament, you've got about the same amount of time to get into the money. So I think people are now starting thinking, hey, I want to get something for my efforts here. So I feel like that's part of where the bounty starts coming into play too, is because people are like, hey, I'm too far away to get to the money, but yet I can pick up some dollar bills here and be happy about them, right? I mean, it's like that's part of the mentality too.
They're going to take a marginal spot to try and bank some money.
Get $50 in my pocket. Bank. It's like bank money, right? Like it's any game show ever. It's like, man, if I have the opportunity to bank some cash, bank it. Put it in the bank. That's mine. I've won it. Now let's continue to go for the grand prize. And at some point, that banking gets less and less of a thing because you have to get to the end game. So at what point in the tournament would you say that the bounties, it's kind of like this rise and fall, right? Like early on in the tournament, it's not that big a deal. Bounties are just kind of insignificant. Then you start hitting the peak of where bounties are really starting to affect the way people play. And that's kind of in the middle towards the late stages of the tournament, but pre-money bubble, right?
Right.
Or basically middle of the tournament to money bubbles when the bounties themselves are really affecting the way people make their decisions in the tournament, because that extra $50 or $100, if there's two players in the hand, you can knock out two guys in one swoop. I mean, that's like half of your buy-in in the 250. That's you're going to get way more marginal calls than you would in a normal spot where the guy's like, I'm just going to let them fight it out, because there's no benefit to knocking those players out.
Right. You just want to sit on the sidelines and watch it on a normal tournament. But here you need to get in on the action. And especially when you start to think about, like, a main cash is like, what, in a 250 bounty, a main cash is going to be about 400, 380.
350 would be on the small end.
350. Yeah. So, I mean, really, when you start like looking at it comparatively to a min cash, when all of a sudden this $100 bounty, if you knock out two people, that's a third of a min cash. Like, so if you know, the min cash might seem like far out because you're kind of short, but you have this opportunity. It's kind of like a little opportunity to like sneak in the money before you're actually in the money, right, with a stack that you might not get into the money with. You need to gamble anyway, so you might as well gamble and try and make an extra 100, as opposed to being the short stack and making nothing if you double up. So people are going to just take all those spots. So yeah, when you really get, I mean, if you're paying top 10 and you get down to, 18, 15, 14, that area, now all of a sudden it's like nobody's chasing the bounties anymore. The bounties kind of go back to the beginning where it's like, well, I'm going to take this spot anyways. It's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
Right. And then when you actually, I'm just fast forwarding here kind of quick because I know we've been on this episode for a long time already. We haven't even talked about bounties yet. But once you get down to the final table, really, if you're in the money, the bounties are basically irrelevant.
Would say 80% of the time, they end up making a deal where they just stop with the bounties, and the final table is like, all right, we're just going to keep whatever bounties we have, and bounties are just no longer a thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
because they don't care about
it. They don't care.
When you're playing for a first place prize, nobody gives a shit about the $50 bounty. I mean, first place is $2,000, and I'm just making an arbitrary number here. But like, if you're
really, it's probably like 2,500. And if you think about it, if you knock out everybody at the final table, you get $400 because you knock out 8 players. I mean, correct. The $400 for knocking out everybody is really,
and the difference between first and ninth in the tournament is way more than $400. So it's like,
it's a min cash of $350 or a win of $2,500.
Right, you're basically getting an extra min cash. So really, the bounties, once you get down to that final table and everybody's in the money, again, they really don't affect the play at all. I would say 0% of the time they're going to make a decision based on that $50 bounty once you get into the money. Right.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's going to take like the rare scenario where like the chip leader has a marginal hand that he might fold in that extra for 6 big blinds or 8 big blinds where that bounty might put him over the top and gamble. I mean, that like literally that's the only time where it might matter, where the guy's just like, I'm on the fence and the $50, might make a difference. Plus I get a pay jump. So, but really 95% of the time bounties they're done. So by the time you get there. By the time you get deep, which is why, and I know we can't do this, which is why the progressive bounties are awesome, because the bounties are relevant from the middle part of the tournament.
It takes that
all the
part
way
of it
through.
Off. Right.
Because now all of a sudden everybody's bounties are $600, $800, $1,000 because the dude's knocked out 15 people along the way. Now all of a sudden the the ladder up doesn't really matter, and the bounties kind of are the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one day we'll figure out a system to get that live.
Should be fun.
But another thing in terms of bounties, we kind of did on the attack side of getting the bounties. Let's look at it the other side. If you are being hunted by the bounty hunters and you are the short stack, just like a little bit of strategy is that you need to realize that, especially if it's in the middle part of the tournament, these guys are calling off lighter, right? We just talked about for 8 minutes about how people are gambling it up, they're ISOing, they're doing stuff they normally wouldn't do. So that means if you are the one that is short, you can shove looser than you normally would because you're going to get called looser. So your normal ranges of a normal tournament kind of go out the window a little bit. I'll give you an example. If you're on the button with 9 big blinds and you got ace, deuce, offsuit, I mean, that's kind of borderline, right? I mean, you're
right.
like, I got 9 bigs. I have an ace, but like I'm not in good shape against anything, especially something that's calling me I'm probably behind in. Yeah. It's probably going to be a pocket pair or a better ace. You know, you're really just hoping to steal the blinds. You got ace 9 off, or I'm sorry, you got ace, deuce, offsuit in a bounty tournament with 9 big blinds. You're fist pumping all in because you know that anybody that limped or anybody that's in the blinds is going to call you with any 2 picture cards, rundown cards, especially if they have chips. I mean, you're getting called by Jack 10, you're getting called by Queen Jack, King Queen, Queen 10. All of these Broadway combinations, you're getting called by that you're ahead of now in a bounty tournament that you normally would not get. You look down at Queen Jack offsuit in the small blind, you're like, man, this guy's all in, I'm out of here. What can I beat? But now they're gambling it up for your bounty. So you can now open up your range of what you can shove because you're going to get called later. So therefore you can shove later. Well, I feel like people don't do that.
I think that the kind of the moral to the story is the same idea, right? You have to work it both ways. You got to be aware that you need to loosen up a little bit when you're making calls because of the fact that there is a reason to call for those bounties. I mean, that you can do that. And the same side, you got to be aware of the fact that people are going to be making looser calls. So you have to change your range to effectively make that, right? I mean, that's the whole principle of this.
Right. You adjust to the people that adjust.
Adjusting to the adjusting.
Yes.
Of the adjustments.
When somebody adjusts, you adjust the same way.
Right. On the fly.
Right. And then there's going to be a point in the tournament where you're looking around and you're like, okay, well, now my $50 bounty doesn't mean so much because there's a $250 pay jump, so I can't just rip ace 9 anymore.
Right.
Like I'm back to ripping ace deuce. I'm back to ripping ace 10
right,
or ace
because
jack.
The difference between 9th place money and 8th place money is worth more than that $50 bounty.
So you just need to be consciously aware of like when that shift happens because you'll feel it, you know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the guy that's been going after all these bounties is just mucking for 2 orbits in a row, and you're like, all right, well, I guess the party's over.
The bounties are gone. Yeah.
Right. All the pool has dried up in the bounty area. So bounties are fun. And I mean, let me tell you, just playing that are the CCG black chip bounty, the 300 bounty.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is because you knock out a guy or two early and you're just like, you're on cruise control.
You feel like you're free rolling or you feel like the idea,
tournament.
Right. You're getting such a discount on it. And I think that's what's so, and I think to the average player, you know, not the grinders out there that play all the time and they're worried about the rake and the structure and how things go. Like for the average Joe or Jane that just is coming out to play in a tournament because they want to enjoy it and they want to just feel like they're having a good time. Bounty tournaments are super fun because there's less pressure to get to the end of the tournament to make any money. Like in all honesty, if you told me, hey, it's a $300 tournament, $100 bounties, and I knock one guy out, I'm like, man, I felt like I won money. I won $100. Like I don't feel it's like the net effect of I'm in for 300. Like I still lost money on the tournament. It's like between the
300's already gone, and now I got
and the entertainment, right? Like it's a way to get the average players to get money out of the tournament where they don't have to make. There's less pressure, right? Like there's less pressure to be one of the top 10 to 12% of the tournament. Which, let's be honest, I'm probably not in the top 10% of no limit hold'em tournaments, unless
basically ever.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm aware of that, but bounty tournaments, on the other hand, oof.
If you think of a normal tournament and you like put an assigned like in a spreadsheet, like this player, it's either minus 250. It's, you know, everybody would be like minus 250, minus 250, minus 250, and minus 250, minus 250 until you got into the money, and all of a sudden it's plus 250, plus 400, plus 800. Like if you just signed a value over their head of their net. Well, in a bounty tournament, it's all over the place. You got guys that knocked out minus 250, minus 250. But then you got guys that are minus 200, guys that are minus 150, guys that are minus 100, guys that are even. like it spreads out that money. So there's all of a sudden, it's not binary. It's not just like 0 or 1. It's not, I lost 250 or I got into the money. There's all these other combinations of just, you got guys that come up to the bank and they just, they throw you 4 green chips for their bounty. And then, he only lost 150 on the tournament. And it's just nice to know that,
it, right? Like
yeah,
you feel
really
like you're getting a rebate on your play. And I think that's what's the most fun. There's less pressure on the players to make it into the money. Like it's a way to get money spread out across the room. And if anybody knows the poker economy in general, like that's what you kind of need to do is spread the money around. If it gets too one-sided, then the games all break. And that's what people don't understand. Like it's great to have you got to have different types of poker personalities at the tables. Otherwise the games don't fire. And this is a way to kind of, for the house to kind of spread that out and make it more of a dream for the players to be like, I don't have to make it to the end. I can get money earlier and be happy with it. And many people are. I think it's great. I think bounty tournaments are super fun.
I can't tell you how many times I've worked the bank and, Margaret or somebody comes up or, Lionel or something. They come up to the bank and they give me 250 or 300 in green chips. And I'm like, oh, you got knocked out. They're like, yeah, I made $50. Yeah, I broke even though.
Super
happy.
It
was good. Right. And like you don't really get the guys there's really is no breaking even in tournament poker.
Correct.
In a single, so it's nice to like see that for these guys and they're happy about it too.
Yeah.
Or here's 150. I only lost 100. Yeah, nice little rebate. Long day of work for 100. For minus 100.
It makes you feel better about the losers. And anytime you can feel better about a loser is probably
that's the right thing. That's the right format.
Yeah, it really is.
Because I've been feeling good about losers for 5 years.
What are some of the most famous bounty tournaments? Can you think of any? I'm thinking of one in particular, and this might be pre-Brandon days, but like California, kind of like the original bounty tournament. They called it something very specific.
Shooting Stars?
Yeah, Bay 101, Shooting Star. That was something that was on TV all the time. Does the WSOP do bounty tournaments now?
So remember they did it. They did that mystery bounty tournament last year.
Oh, can we talk about that just in general?
Sure,
that's a dope ass idea.
It really is. It's like people get assigned. You get assigned bounties on your head, but nobody knows what they are until
and they're
you
all
knock
different.
Out that player.
So it's kind of a way to do a progressive bounty or like a lottery
it's like
scratch
a
off.
Bounty. Yeah, it's like a scratch off.
Yeah, it's like you knock a player out and you get like a scratch off ticket and you don't know what it's going to be for. And like, what was the denominations? Like the lowest bounty versus the highest bounty?
I would just be making it up, but I want to say it was like 500. It was like a $1,500 buy-in or $5K buy-in. I think it was maybe a $5K buy-in, and it was like $500 bounties was the small, and then there was either a $100K bounty or a $250K bounty.
All right, well, I'm looking at it, so I know what it is.
Oh, okay.
I just Googled it.
Well, I just made that up, so we'll see how.
You were pretty close.
Back.
2020 World Series of Poker Mystery Bounty Event. Now, did this actually happen since we didn't do the 2020 event, or did this happen?
Didn't happen.
Oh, yeah, Sunday, June 28th. COVID takes over the bounty. COVID was the big winner of this bounty tournament. Anyways.
Right. COVID got all the bounties. That's bad, but.
All right. $1 million in mystery bounties up for grabs with one bounty worth $250K. It was a $1,500 buy-in.
Yep.
That is fucking gross. And
what
I
was
apologize for dropping a huge F-bomb there, but that is bananas. It's crazy.
So now I think I don't know if it was a scratch off. I think like each was it a scratch off or each seat was assigned.
You got a number. I think it was. I was using scratch off as like a thing. I think the way it worked is you got a number. So like you get. I don't know how they would.
Like each player has a unique number, and when that player gets knocked out,
you would go to the bank and be like, "All right,
number.
Yeah, I knocked out player 85," and they're like, "Okay, 85." And the way that the payouts worked is each bounty amount was everybody a bounty. There will be 100 mystery bounties. Each will be worth at least 2,500. Could be worth as much as 250,000. All the other standard bounties would be worth $100. So a regular bounty bust out is at least worth $100, and then there were 100 that were the mystery bounties. They were like 1 through 100. I don't know which ones were which. Obviously, they're all assigned random ones, but it went from 80 people of the 100 were worth 2,500. Then there were 10K bounties, 6 25K bounties, 3 100K bounties, and then obviously the nut was the guy who got knocked out for 250K, which is crazy.
It is, because now you're just like, you're making decisions like, and people are making it on a limb that this guy's, I can knock this down. He could be the one guy that's worth 250.
Right. This tournament didn't happen because obviously the WSOP did not happen. But I think this is.
So we're going to do one at CCG before the WSOP 2021.
I think that's 100%. So
we'll be the first people to do it.
100%. But I want to talk about this for a second. And I think it's a great way to wrap up the show, because this is probably a really cool way of doing a new bounty tournament that I think is really awesome. And it's just this randomness where a guy could get knocked out first in the tournament and win freaking way more than first place money and be the first guy to get busted if he happens to be the, you know what I mean? Like if that happens in any way.
Well, it couldn't be the first guy to get busted.
Second guy to get busted.
There you go. You can get the second.
Thanks, Brandon. Because you'd have to actually bust a player. So you could bust the first guy in the tournament and then be the second guy busted out and win $250,000 on your $1,500 buy-in, which is amazing. But let's talk about this. I don't know how many people they were expecting, but $250K in a $1,500 tournament, depending on the number of players you got, that's got to be close to first place money, right?
Do
they know the bounties going into let's say you're at the final table. Even better, you're 6 players into the final table, and somehow they've realized that 250 person or 100K bounty, because those are still huge numbers. If you're talking about, what's that going to get? Like, how many people playing a $1,500 tournament? Like, if 7,000 are playing in the main event, is it like 2,000, 3,000?
That's like, probably between 2,000 and 4,000, depending on a normal 1,500.
Let's say 3,000, and how much do they keep out of the 1,500? Like,
just say 150 for good measure.
Let's say it's 1,350. We're just making some argumentative. It's $4.5 million, and what do they get? Probably third to first place. I guess it's still $1 million to first.
No, it'll probably be like 20% to first with that many people in it.
All right, so even divide that in half, you're still at 600,000 for first place. Like, I get at that point the 250 is not as bad. But again, let's say that randomness is out there. So we just talked about how in a regular bounty tournament where each player is only worth $100, obviously I am not going to make a decision at a final table of the WSOP tournament where each player is worth $100 bounty when first place is $600,000, $1 million, $100,000. It doesn't even matter. $10,000. If I'm playing for last place money, I don't care about that $100. Now flip it. Now let's say we know there's at least one of those massive bounties left, and you got a 1 in 6 chance that somebody you knock out of the tournament is worth 100K. Like, that's a huge difference, and it really now takes the bounty aspect of the tournament and drags it all the way right to the final table, where somebody who's worth $250,000 bounty, one random person, like, it's going to affect the way people call and raise and fold, because it's a third of first place money.
Agree. Yeah,
half of first place
huge.
Money.
It's huge. But I think the only way you know that if it was like you had inside information.
Well, I wonder if they know. That. Like, do you go to like a kiosk and be like, "I'm number 85." And it spits out $100 bill at you, or a pay ticket for $2,500, or a pay ticket for $10K. Like, do you think they have a running total, or do you think they wait all the way to the end? Because it really will affect the way the final table plays if one of those massive bounties, one of those 4 big bounties, the 6-figure bounties, like, that's going to make a difference in how people play the final table.
I'm assuming that they would definitely not reveal.
Do you have to wait until afterwards to see what
Probably
it is? What a sicko prop bet. Like, I'd be out there trying to, like,
I got 9 bounties who wants to buy them.
Yes, that's going to happen. Like, you're going to get people like, I'm selling my bounty seats for $500 a piece. Like, I would buy one. I would 100% buy one if I thought I had a some kind of chance. Right?
It's so funny.
So sick. The underground sickos of poker are going to profit off of this black market of bounty tickets. Either way, they're screwed. If they let people find out early, that it's going to affect the actual players in the tournament, because again, one of those big fat bounties is out there. It's going to affect the way people play, which is cool as shit. I think it's a cool factor. It makes the bounties more valuable. It makes it where it's like a real tournament versus like, it's just a regular tournament. Like, it gives it something different. But I also think it's super cool on the flip side. If they wait until after the tournament to figure out what's going to happen, it creates an entire underground market of these bounties. Like, it's cool as shit. And then, like, I love it. I think it's an awesome idea. Whoever came up with this idea, Bravo.
They need a raise.
They need a raise. Yeah. WSOP, give the man or the woman who came up with this, or ungenderfied, whatever we're talking about now, like whomever, they need a freaking raise is what they need. Because this is an awesome tournament idea, and I'm so sad it didn't get to happen. We're definitely going to steal this idea.
Absolutely. The only issue is there has to be a guarantee on it, because they have to have the amount of bounties out in the first place. But we can make it.
It'll be cool as shit. I mean,
it's going to be great.
250,000. Who knows? This is a great marketing scam, but not scam, but scheme. It's very.
I'm
cool.
ready.
Very, very, very cool. Remaining funds go to the regular prize pool, paid out based on finish and pay out the standard 15% of the field size. So basically, they're taking that out of the prize pool. So it is out of the prize pool.
Right. So it's whatever what's the remainder amount of money.
I mean, we were saying at 3,000 players at about 1,350, which again, these are guessing numbers. That's a $4 million prize pool. They're going to take out the $1 million
in bounties.
Right.
So
that's a quarter of the prize pool. And then they're going to also take out the regular $100 bounties, which is 10% of the prize pool, a little less, 8%. So it does come out. I mean, they're taking out a big chunk of the prize pool, but I think it's a very, very, very cool idea for a tournament. I think it's neat.
Yep.
I like bounties in general. It's a way to spread the money out, and I never find that to be an issue. I think it's a good thing for poker. Too often, poker is really kind of segregated towards the good players, and as a bad player, I like it when I have a chance to win money without actually
or
doing anything.
Like a lottery ticket. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, I'm there for lottery tickets.
So in 10 seconds, my idea for a progressive bounty is that everybody, and for a live tournament, is every time you knock a player out, the bounty just goes onto your chip stack, and it just stays there until you guys make it in the money. Then you keep the bounties.
Ooh, so it's like each bounty is like a $5 chip, and then they just kind of keep getting colored up, and then that way a guy who's got $200 in bounties, you could knock out and keep his whole $200 in bounties or whatever.
Well, you don't get to keep it. You have to make it in the money.
You're right. It would just go onto your stack. That would make a huge difference, because again, that's really going to affect the way people play. And then once you get through the money bubble, it's like, all right, now you just bank all your bounty chips that you won and go off from there.
Yeah, because if there's 50 people in the tournament and the money bubble is top 6 and you're at 7, that means there's 43. All 50 bounties are still on the table. You know what I mean? Because nothing's gotten taken off the table. Whereas the bounties later in tournaments, they go into people's pockets. Well, all the bounties are still in everybody's stack until you get in the money. Then it goes from all the bounties on the stack to none of the bounties on the stack. So it's a way, you could have no bounties, and Stacia could have 15 bounties, and she could, $50 bounties, that's $750. And then you knock her out with 8 people left, and you get all her bounties.
Yep.
Seems fun.
Which is great.
We should try it.
I think it's a wonderful idea. Well, thank you for listening to episode 41. 41 episodes, Brandon. That's kind of crazy. 41 episodes of The Overlay. Almost 7,000 downloads. It's crazy how many people have supported us, and even it was funny, a guy at the event on Saturday at Warrenville was like, "Oh, I know that voice. You do the podcast." He's like, "I love the podcast." And normally I only get that for the vlog. You're like, "Hey, you're that goof with the hair that does the videos." So it's kind of neat to get that. That people are noticing us for the actual podcast, which is dope as shit. So thank you for listening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Overlay Pod. We are avoiding Facebook and Instagram because I really don't want to have to do more Facebook and Instagram stuff. I already spend so much time on it. I really don't want to do any more. So I'm not going to. Sorry.
Valid reasons.
Follow us on Paramount or CCG's page. You can see all the cool stuff Ken does there. Other than that, thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button. You have no idea how great it is if you leave us a review. So if you're a regular listener, or you come to CCG all the time, or even if it's the first time you've listened to us, just go ahead and hit that. Even if you just punched a 5-star review, it literally takes 1 second. It's like review, 5 stars, done. We'd prefer if you're going to leave like a 1-star review to just go somewhere else and do it. But practice first, hit that 5-star. But if you actually write a review, like that's how we get nods up, and we start getting listed with like the big poker podcasts. If we start getting more reviews, Apple will like bump us up with other famous podcasts, and that's only going to grow our listening audience, which will mean more Mystery Bounty players for the next Mystery Bounty tournament at the CSOP or HSOP or WSOP, whatever the SOP may be. Did you like that one?
I did.
That's pretty good. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Hopefully we see it this weekend at Bridgeview or Lombard. Not quite sure Paramount will be open, being that Houston is basically under snow and winter warnings, but hopefully they're back to business as usual soon. Other than that, thanks for listening. Brandon, lead us out.
Farewell, everyone.
See you, everybody. Bye.